Welcome to The Alignment Show, featuring conversations with folks who have taken steps to identify their highest values and align their lives around them. Time on this earth is not unlimited, and you may be seeking to make sure you spend your time on things that matter to you. These conversations will encourage you and support you in doing so. Now, let's meet this week's guest on The Alignment Show. And good morning, good evening, good afternoon, whatever time it might be in your part of the world. Welcome once again to The Alignment Show. We appreciate you spending some time with us here. I'm Don King. I am your host on The Alignment Show, and this is episode 45 of The Alignment Show. It's hard to believe we've been going for that long. As we get started today, just a little reminder, as has been the case for several weeks now, we do have a book out, The Way of the 3-Year-Old Why, up here over my shoulder. A business fable that is designed to help you to figure out what is most important to you, or to remember what that is. You know, when you're up to your neck in alligators, it's hard to remember your objective was to drain the swamp. And so I hope that this book and its story would be an encouragement to you. If you want to find out more information about that, you can go to donking.com. That's DONN, 2 N's.com /3YO. That's the number 3 and the letters YO. I am very pleased this week, though, to have a repeat guest with us. Now, we did have somebody else that was scheduled. We announced last week another group, and they needed to reschedule. And so I'm one of the great supporters of the show. She's been on here before, agreed to come on short notice. And I know this is going to be a great conversation because Peg Duchesne has dealt with life's curveballs, and they all come at us, don't they? And so let's go ahead and get Peg on here. Peg, thank you so much for coming on The Alignment Show. And it's been one of those weeks again, hasn't it?
It has been a week. It's been a month, the start of the new year. And I'm so happy to be here, Don. Thank you for having me back as an encore guest. And I just want to say how much I am absolutely loving The Way of the 3-Year-Old Why. You know, lots of times you talk about business fable and business parable, and I prefer the term parable over fable. And the differentiator for me, at least, is that fables have animals in them.
Oh.
Parables do not. And yours is a fable because we're learning from the chickens, we're learning from the robins, we're learning from all sorts of animal life in this great world that we live in. But mostly we're learning about thinking like a 3-year-old and asking why. Yeah, but why? But why again some more? And what's the and because, you know, all those things. It is just a delightful book. I so am embracing it, and thank you for that gift to the world with your authorship of that.
Well, thank you, Peg, and the fact that you're in a way promoting my book, and we've got you on as a guest. It just shows your heart as a go-giver. I know that is at the heart of what you do. I would agree with Bob Berg, who has commented here. The most connected person I know. I know he commented on LinkedIn about Kevin Bacon and his 6 degrees of separation. I think with Peg, it's more like 2 degrees of separation. Maybe not that much.
Well, thank you. And I love that Bob calls me the most connected person. I embrace that title immensely. And that's one of the reasons why I love the social media platform LinkedIn, because it shows you those 2 and 3 degrees of separation and how small the world is by who we know and who knows us and what we can do for one another. So thank you both, Bob and Don.
Absolutely. In fact, as long as we're talking about LinkedIn right now, we're going to go ahead and put up the QR code for your LinkedIn. People who are watching this or watching on the replay, you too can be connected to Peg. For those who are listening on the audio only, let's be sure that you can find her. It'll be in the show notes. Okay, you'll want to be sure you know about confidencecultivators.com in order to get the show notes. But you hear us saying Peg Duchesne. She's used to people calling her Peg Duchesne because that's kind of spelled that way. And so the last name is Duchesne. And that led to Duchess Enterprises because, hey, it's not a bug, it's a feature, right?
Right. Well, and I like to say Duchess is so much easier to say. Plus, I treat my clients like royalty.
Very good, very good. So Peg has been on here before. So let's give a little bit of background there. You are, the short way to put it is, you are the message therapist, not massage therapist. And Peg, my twisted sense of humor. I can't help but wonder if you don't occasionally get interesting phone calls. Oh, I thought you were a massage therapist.
Right. So I massage the words, but I'm a message therapist.
There we go. And so all kinds of communication skills here that we're talking about. And we've talked about that in a previous episode. In fact, folks, I will make sure in the show notes for this one that we link to that previous episode. So it's okay if we repeat some stuff. But one of the things we had in mind as we were getting together today is you had life to throw you a major curveball. Can we go ahead and talk about that a little bit?
Yes, indeed. You only learn through what you know. And I went, for 14 months, I was the chairperson of my high school reunion. It was, let's just put it out there. It was my 50th high school reunion. I graduated from high school maybe when I was 12 or something. I don't know, but we had worked, the committee was 10 plus the chair and myself. So we called ourselves Ocean's 11, and we worked for 14 months. When we had our 45th reunion 5 years ago, we couldn't find about 18 classmates. And so the first venture of the committee was to try and locate those missing classmates. And we believe we found them all. Some people didn't want to be found, and you just need to respect that, right? They don't want to have anything to do with high school. You just have to let them be.
Put that behind you.
But we found a lot. And so we planned this great event, and it was near Baltimore Washington Airport. People could fly in. The hotel and the venue for the event were adjacent to one another, so it made it easy. You could Uber or cab over from the airport and not need a vehicle again for the whole weekend. And we had over 50% of our graduating class attend and participate. It was really a great turnout. Wonderful weekend. Sunday morning, I get that dreaded phone call. It's my next door neighbor saying, "Are you coming home today?" And I said, "Yeah, I'll be home this afternoon. I'm going to go visit my aunt while I'm sort of close." And she said, "I don't know. I think you should come sooner." What had happened was the hot water heater 2 stories above me had burst a pipe, and the entire contents, and they couldn't shut it off. So water kept running. So when I got home, you're not supposed, the insurance people say, don't say flood, because that needs a whole kind of different insurance. But the water disbursement episode had occurred, and there was water everywhere. And, about 90% of my personal belongings were ruined beyond salvation. So, so for 28 days, I stayed in a hotel and went back and forth to my unit trying to, dispose. And the insurance company said, "Don't throw anything away. We need to see it. We can't come for 3 weeks." I mean, it was just a mess upon a mess upon a mess beyond. And, you say you have 2 choices. You can be angry, mad, and rude to everybody, or you can think, what is this lesson teaching me? And how can I still show up with a positive attitude and treat others with respect and be a kind person as we navigate this challenge, this curveball, this roadblock, if you will. And, lots of people were rude to me. "You're taking too long getting out." Well, the insurance says don't move anything till they see it. And, some things were out of my hands, but trying to approach it so well. And then I was already moving. I had already given notice that I was moving, and that might have been part of the challenge, because the apartment felt like the people on the second floor were moved to a hotel, then they moved their things to another unit while they rehabbed their unit and then moved them back. But since I was already moving anyway, I guess they felt they didn't need to do that with me. I don't know.
Oh man.
So my unit where I was going in the future was available early. So thank goodness for that. But I didn't have a bed. Both beds in my apartment had to be thrown away because of the damage they incurred, mold and all the water damage. And so I moved to my new place and had an air mattress, thinking, oh, the insurance company is going to give me $1,000 advance on my claim so that I can at least buy a bed. Well, that took 3 weeks. And so I will tell you, it was a rock and roll experience I never want to have again, was sleeping on an air mattress, getting in and out and just, oh my goodness. And I'm trying to make light of it and make a joke of it. And if I was a stand-up comedian, this is what I would say about that. But the truth of the matter is, when you're not sleeping well, it just really wreaks havoc on your positive attitude, right? So anyway, you just keep thinking, what is this lesson teaching me? What am I called to do today? So those are some of the ways that I got through that. I'm now in my new location. The other day I hung a couple of pieces of artwork on the wall. So it's starting to feel more and more like home. And the insurance company hasn't made resolution yet, but we're working towards making resolution. It's been just a little over 90 days now. That's certainly long enough to get there. So those are some of the things I've been coping with in the meantime. But I love this conversation about how do we react to it and how do we rise above and still be a better person from those experiences.
Oh yeah. I'm wondering, you put up a reel on Facebook to show some of this. Would it be okay if I
Yeah, you can certainly share that if you'd like.
Yeah.
I did that partly to show the insurance company that, I don't know. I don't want to talk bad about the insurance industry, but it's like they want to get you so frustrated. Maybe you're just going to give up and walk away. I don't know.
Well, and I wonder about that. And I will tell you, my late ex-wife worked for, I'm not going to say the company, but a major insurance company years ago. And she told me that they routinely denied claims because they knew about a third of the people would just say, okay, well, I guess it's not covered. And then if they appealed that, then they would just go ahead and pay it because it was cheaper to pay it than it was to fight it. So it wouldn't surprise me to find out that is the case. I don't think I have, let me see here. Maybe
we can certainly share it in the show notes if you can't pull it up.
I've got it here, but I'm afraid I'm going to mess it up in trying to share it right here live. So yeah, if you're okay with it, we'll share it in the show notes. So it'll be
that would be fine. It was a heartbreaking day when finally the insurance had come and said, oh yeah, this is a total loss. And then I had to have the junk removers come, and they brought 2 huge 6-foot flatbed trailers and 3 pickup trucks that they ended up filling twice and taking to the landfill. And I've always been a recycler, and I'm thinking, oh my goodness, but the insurance said, oh no, if mold has been in this, you can't donate it, you shouldn't do, and even a bottle of wine or vodka that had been opened, throw it out.
Yeah.
And I'm like, but I only had 1 drink it just, it has alcohol. Doesn't that have purifying effects in it or something? Anyway, but some of the things as they're carrying out my belongings and I'm sitting there taking pictures as they're walking out with my things, heartbreaking. One of the things hanging in my hall closet was my dress blues from I served in the military, the Army Reserves, for 16 years, and I rose to the rank through the enlisted ranks and then was commissioned. And my final rank before I left service was captain. And I had my dress blues with my medals and everything, and there's mold all over the dress blues jacket. And so it clearly had to go. But when they walked that out to throw it on the heap of other junk, it definitely brought a tear to my eye, thinking about all those years of service, the sweat and tears of being in the service and what you do to accomplish those goals and dreams. And then I started thinking about the friends I met and the comrades I served with, and just kind of your whole life flashes before you, right, when they're carrying everything out.
Yeah. Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's think about, for the folks listening, because I know you're always extracting lessons. You you may have already gotten to the point of saying, here are 3 steps or 4 steps or whatever, but if we're not there yet, just kind of think about it out loud here. First thing, you do let yourself feel it. I mean, you don't try to act like nothing happened. So I had earlier this week, it was not nearly on the level of what you've dealt with, and you dealt with your situation much better than I dealt with mine. Just a real quick, so people know what we're talking about here. My wife uses a power wheelchair, and it lives in our van, so it can't freeze. I had run an extension cord, heavy duty extension cord, out to be able to run a heater. I remembered to unplug the chair, to unplug the heater, but I didn't pull the extension cord out of the window before I left for work, and so it shattered the back window. And this is on a van, so it took 3 days to get it replaced. I lost 3 days of work because I couldn't drive with the wheelchair in there with it like that. Storms coming in, all that sort of thing. So this is just, and it cost me a few $100s to fix.
Right.
So again, nothing like what you dealt with. Okay. And so
Well, it's not about comparison, right? It's just
it's
how we deal with what we're faced with at that moment, right?
exactly. And so that's why I can tell you that when that thing got pulled out like that, I said a few things that, you know, not very pastor like, I guess we would say, and beat myself up pretty bad, And so this was not anything I caused that. Now, in your case, it was somebody else. And not even that it was their fault, because I mean you can't predict when a water heater's gonna burst.
Right.
Side trip here. I am a little curious about why they couldn't turn the water off. Why they had to just let it keep running. So they weren't home either, or
No, they were home and didn't know how to turn the water off,
oh
and apparently ended up, it was a Saturday when the incident happened. They called the leasing office, but the leasing office isn't open on a Saturday. They finally called 911, and when they explained it, 911's like, "This isn't what we do," but they finally came and I guess turned it off. I don't have all the
yeah,
details of
yeah.
what happened. It's kinda interesting when I traced when this actually happened. At the time the water burst, the pipe burst, I was probably standing with a microphone in the middle of the room at the alumni doing we have 13 classmates who have predeceased us, and we were reading their names in memoriam.
Oh wow.
And it was probably during that time that I was doing that for the class reunion that the pipes burst. I mean, what does that tell you?
Oh my. Well, and
You can't make this stuff up. Yeah, but,
I'm thinking about a difference here. I caused my problem. In your case, in a way, it was nobody's fault. I'm
right.
not sure which is worse. I mean, I was beating myself up, but at least there was somebody to blame. In your case, it was like, where's this come from? Do you think that made it worse or easier to deal with, that it was nobody's fault?
I don't know if it's better or worse. The challenge is what we do when we're faced with those kinds of
Yeah, because it's
things.
the matter of control. I mean, this was
Right.
uh, the circumstance was out of your control, but your response to it was in your control. So, did you allow yourself a certain time? Uh, in my case, it happened as I was there. You didn't find out about it until you got home, but there was the moment of realization. And so, did
Right.
you allow
Right.
yourself some time to walk around and cuss?
Yeah. Eh, yes. All of that.
Okay.
And
So here's one of the first insights maybe to share with somebody else. Don't try to shut down your reaction, but on the other hand, don't wallow in it. Is that an accurate way to say how you approached it?
I would say, you have to have that pity party, if you will, like, oh, woe is me. Oh, why did this happen? But you don't need to take it out into the world in your dealings with others. You can, um, they didn't cause it, you know, how we react and interact with others tells a lot about ourselves. And so I'm sure you had that moment where you're, you know, dadgummit, what did I,
A little stronger than that,
blaming
but yeah.
yourself and all the things. But as you're dealing with the window repair person and all that, you're not taking it out on them. You're
Yeah.
being kind because you know what you need is this, and they're going to be able to, they're the path for you to get to what you need and all of those things. But definitely you have to deal with the emotions that arise and then sort of reframe how you're going to be out in the world interacting with
Yeah,
others.
yeah. Jump ahead a little bit. When you're a writer or a speaker, no matter what happens to you, it's fodder, it's material. But for
Right.
folks listening who are neither writers nor speakers, I mean, it's always grist for the mill, as Ram Dass used to say. It's learning
Mhm.
material. You have certainly learned from it, and so that's part of why you're on here today. And thank you for that, because we're helping other people to deal with when life inevitably throws you a curveball. So there's an element of grieving here, grieving loss. Like you said, 90% of your stuff gone, and the memories are not gone, but the what those things represented. I think on a biological level, it can make us feel exposed because our shelter has been violated. So, any advice as far as the grieving aspect? This is beyond the anger that may have been the initial response.
Right. I'm still dealing with all that. And, the thank goodness I was on a road trip and at least had the 3 outfits I had for the weekend away. When I checked into the hotel the night I got home, I'm like, well, at least I have my toothbrush with me, trying to see the positive. But the reality of it was, I had 3 winter coats. I don't really like coats. I prefer to have a big warm wrap, and I had 4 or 5 of those. All of that is gone, and now it's cold out and I'm, dadgummit, gotta, deal with other things. And, I think wake up in the morning, what am I going to wear today? Oh, that shirt. Oh, yeah, I don't have that shirt anymore. Just all this. It's like this little bit of all ripples throughout your day. And, living in a new place, things are in a different place. Things you used to have, you don't have anymore. All of those is part of that whole grieving and loss emotion roller coaster.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
That,
and as you say,
but
you are still in it, definitely. But
yeah,
you probably also at this point have some insight into where things will go from here as you continue with your process. Is there an
right.
aspect, because you're already starting with at least I have these 3 outfits, at least I have the stuff in my bag, at least I have the toothbrush. Um, is there an aspect that comes along with any move of the starting over? Oh, I've got a fresh wall I can decorate. I can get new stuff. Is that kicking in yet, or is that something you think will come along?
It is kicking in that yet. It is kicking in. One of the things that has helped me so much, Don, has been the sense of gratitude. Like at least I wasn't home when it happened. So when when I got home, there was all kinds of equipment all over the apartment. There was, blowers and heaters and fans and suckers and, just trying to do the abatement of the water. And I couldn't get down the hall to my bedroom to even see the magnitude of the damage. And it was about a week before they were able to push the push the things aside to make a path for me to go. And when I walked into my bedroom, the whole roof had caved in and the plaster was laying all over my
Oh,
bed.
wow.
And I thought, oh my gosh, it's a good thing I stayed both nights at the reunion and didn't come home after the farewell party on Saturday night, because I could have been sleeping and the weight of the water knocked that down on top of me. And, chills went up my spine and said, there, but for the grace of God go I, right? I would have been died in her sleep with a crash of the ceiling on top of her. Not that that would have happened, but when I saw that, that's what went through my head. So a sense of gratitude, trying to find the shininess or the the good things throughout the bad. I have good connections, so I could call a person and say, can you give me some advice about how to deal with the insurance people? This is what they're telling me. That doesn't seem right. What do you recommend? Those kinds of things. Interesting. I rented a 9x9 storage unit for the few pieces that I could salvage.
Mhm.
It ended up, I only filled about half of that 9x9 unit, which isn't much at all.
Yeah.
But the gentleman that I'm dealing with across the counter from me at the Chestertown Vault Storage, I mentioned that I was moving back to Leonardtown, Maryland in St. Mary's County, Southern Maryland. And he said, oh, I love Leonardtown. That's where my wife and I were married.
Oh, okay.
And I said, really? How did you come to know Leonardtown? And he said, well, we met when we were students at St. Mary's College, which is my alma mater.
Yeah.
And I currently serve on the board of trustees at St. Mary's. So it's like, so we had this instant connection. So as I'm going through my apartment, I found a envelope that the college had sent us when they rebranded about a year ago, a new logo. They put it on a pennant, and it wasn't ruined. It was in the envelope. And so I said, well, let me take this to him. So the next day I went to the storage and said, we have this St. Mary's connection. You married your wife. You're from there. Here's this. I thought you would appreciate this. He opened it up and had such gratitude, like, oh, you thought of me. And I'm like, well, of course I did. So anyway, it's just those small little glimpses of hope and great things that happen when you're doing the right thing and treating other people nicely, that, here I am, an alum from our alma mater, is now the one helping me with this disastrous event. It sort of took some of the pain away.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then when something happened and I needed him, I was already in Leonardtown and something happened. The leasing office said, oh, you need to somebody was supposed to go get the boxes off the patio and they didn't do it. I had him go get, he was able to step up and do a favor for me because of the relationship we had built in those few short interactions with one another. And it's just those kinds of things that make getting through something like this so much more bearable and even enjoyable, if you can use that word in this circumstance, right?
Well, and it occurs to me, it's sort of like what Susan Cain talks about when she talks about bittersweet. That was
Right.
her latest book. And Aristotle said something cannot be both A and non-A at the same time, but that's in logical terms. Emotionally, humans can maintain complex emotions. And so I hear you with some joy in the midst of pain. It's a bittersweet mix.
I love that bittersweet analogy. And I also say it was somewhat of a God wink.
Yeah.
To put that gentleman from my alma mater in front of me at this time, it's sort of, we got this together kind of thing.
Yeah, so. Exactly. I without getting into theology too much, I don't think it's true that, God causes things to happen, bad things or whatever, so that we can learn or whatever. On the other hand, when bad things happen, I think it was Maya Angelou who said, God doesn't waste pain. So to bring good things out of what happens to us. And I see you applying that. So it leads me to another question. There is so much of this that is out of our control. And in your case, particularly, you had no control over the break to begin with. But then going a little further, you had no control over the insurance company. And we will continue to avoid naming the company because it's not so much about criticism, but human nature. Part of me is going 3 weeks, and then when they're saying, oh, yes, if it's been like this for 3 weeks. It's moldy. You can't use it. There'd be a part of me that would be going, well, if you'd gotten here earlier,
Right.
and so the advice we're looking for here is any insights that you can offer in dealing with those things or those people who are out of your control. How do you maintain your own equanimity in the midst of that, or to find the things you can control? And it's a complex question, but I think you see where we're going with it here.
Well, the things we can control are how we react. How we react to what happens to us. We can't control what happened, but how we react is what we can control. And there has to be that, as you said, sort of the mourning and the grief and the loss. But from that, and like I've emphasized before, it's how we interact with others along the journey that makes the difference and says a lot about ourselves versus, just this is what happened to me and you're going to fix it. And, that nobody's going to step up and do that with a smile. So realizing that our reaction is what we can control. And that's my recommendation, is step above, embrace what happened. Not embrace might not be the right word, but accept what happened. And the outcome is going to be determined by how we react now moving forward.
It occurs to me, and I have a tendency like this, avoid the woulda, shoulda, couldas.
Right.
If only I had done thus and such. Because I will tell you, in my own circumstance, I spoke to myself in ways that I would never put up with from somebody else.
Right. But I'm sure that you're never going to leave that plugged in the way you did this.
Well, and not only that, okay, maybe this is another one of those things, lessons from life. And all kidding aside, I am an adult with ADHD. This is and the older I get, the more I struggle with it. That's not going to change, and beating myself up, calling myself an airhead or whatever, is not really helpful. It could easily happen again because, it does come out of the ADHD. So I have started a new habit. I've got a clamp that goes on the end of the extension cord when it's not plugged in. When I plug it in, the next thing I do is put the clamp on the steering wheel. Okay. If I get in the car and that clamp is on the steering wheel, then the extension cord is in the car. So I think this
beautiful solution. Yeah.
And fairly simple, and so I think part of the lesson here is to recognize that there are things I have control over, but then there are things that aren't going to change. And so I adapt to it. My wife and I have this thing. I sometimes joke about being the Murphy's Law poster child, and she hates it when I talk about Murphy's Law. My take on it is Murphy's Law is like gravity. It's a part of nature. And just like gravity, you can't get rid of it, but you can take it into account. That's how we fly airplanes.
Right.
Okay. And so rather than just say, I should remember, well, let's just take steps within my reality to deal with it. I don't know if it affects you in your new place. Like, or would you be less likely to move into a multi-story unit? Or to say, if I'm going to be in one of those, I want to be on the top floor.
Well, I am on the top floor in my new place. Okay. So there's no hot water heaters above me. So that's a good thing. Being on the top floor has other challenges with it, but that's all good. It takes it, each day as it comes.
Exactly.
But I love that you've figured out the solution that put the big clip on the wheel. And if you're like, oh yeah, Don, this is my, yep. So good for you for figuring out that workaround that's going to be the solution so it doesn't happen.
At least that one won't happen. That'll be something else.
Right. But it's those kinds of things, finding the solution so we can do it a different way so it doesn't happen again.
Exactly. Exactly. So, now for folks who are listening to us or watching us and they're just getting to know you, I did want to share, if I can find the right Where is it? Where is it? Oh, there we are. Okay, so share screen. Want to show them how to find you on LinkedIn. Again, folks who are with us audio only, we will have these links in the show notes. But this is how you can recognize that you have found the right place on LinkedIn. Okay, and there's all kinds of good stuff here. And then we also want to, let's see, stop that share and then share your website, Duchess Enterprises.
It's Enterprise, one
Oh,
prize.
that's right. And I can see that in the name of it, Duchess Enterprise LLC, and all kinds of communication services here. I mean, and one of the reasons I want to tie this in with what we were talking about, I mean, you can see that Peg is oriented towards solutions, working within the reality. And I know just here recently you have been doing a lot of speaker one sheets and that kind of thing. So, I mean, there's all kinds of marketing and communication help that Peg can provide here. I love, as you say, that you are the message therapist. Yeah.
I love helping shine the light on people's businesses so they get found in the market. I say I massage the words so they hit their mark with their marketing.
There you go.
So,
okay.
yeah.
So, in fact, one of the challenges, and I'll come back to the big challenge that you've faced recently, this didn't just affect where you live. This affected where you do business.
Right.
So how, let's mention another challenge that you've had. I know there were some problems with your email service, and that had nothing to do with what was it we called it instead of a flood, a water incursion incident?
Water disbursement episode.
Oh man, I love the euphemisms that we'll come up with. Let's see, water
Right.
dispersion. I can't make a pronounceable out of that.
Episode. Yeah.
Anyway, but the email thing, I guess, had nothing to do with that. So,
Yeah, all of a sudden, like over New Year's weekend, I wasn't getting very many emails. And I thought, wow, people are really taking this holiday weekend seriously. And then Tuesday, I wasn't getting any mail and I sent mail. And then people started calling me and saying, I just sent you a message and it bounced back. Did you change your email? And I'm like, no, I didn't. And hours on end, it's not like you can call Microsoft and get somebody on the phone and figure out the problem. But I had a virus on my computer, and that's when it went after was the Microsoft. And oh my goodness, it's just it wasn't the water enough.
I find myself sometimes shouting into the ether, don't you ever get tired?
Right. What's the saying of you're not going to be given more than you can handle? But sometimes I think there's an overestimation of our abilities to deal.
Yeah,
right?
I can't remember. It
Yeah.
seems like maybe it was Zig Ziglar, who once said, they say God doesn't give you more than you can handle. I wish God didn't have such a high opinion of me, and I got to say in passing, that is not good theology, but I understand why people say that. If we're going to get theological about it, I think the theological aspect is we have more than we can handle all the time. That's why we need to turn to God to get the strength we need. But this is not a theological program, so
Right.
I relate to it. Well, as we are coming to an end of our time together here, Peg, you know that one of my favorite questions is there's probably something that you wish that I had asked that I didn't know enough to ask or didn't think to ask. What would that question be, and how would you respond to that?
Oh my goodness. The question that we didn't talk about that I wish we had is, I don't have the answer to it, but how do you keep staying positive as things are thrown your way? Like the email, when it happened, I'm like, haven't I dealt with enough already?
Yeah.
And in the meantime, well, you need your email to do your business. You need your email to stay in touch with your connections. Let's figure this out. And, you roll up your sleeves. And just like when you broke the window in your van, you had to put the priorities for the day were no longer the priority of the day. Now you have a new priority. It's not like you never get back to those priorities, but you need to shift and pivot. And, you know,
Yeah.
the more gets done with positive energy. And so instead of getting mired in the muck of, oh, woe is me, you know, you just need to move forward, put on your snow boots, walk through the big snow pile to get to where you're going and get it done. So, you know,
In fact, if I remember correctly, again, folks, remember we had somebody else scheduled for today, and they're going to come up later, okay? But Peg stepped in at the last minute, which I appreciate so much. And in the email where she said, yes, she could do this, I think she even said, call me Pivoting Peg. And that we certainly see that in your ability to respond to what happens, not to react, but to respond. So thank you so much for being here this week, Peg, and look forward to continuing conversations. Just because you've been on here twice doesn't mean you can't be on here 3 times. So we will come back later and see what you're doing. Is that okay?
It is perfectly fine. It's been my pleasure, my honor, and I am in the second quarter of this year. It's in my business plan to restart my podcast called Duchess Connects, Connex, and it's all about the connections and things. And I would love to have you on as a guest early on to talk about. By then, I will have finished. I'll finish the 3-Year-Old Why by this evening, I'm sure.
Yeah.
I stayed up late last night trying to finish it, and it just wasn't there. But it's such a delightful book, such a great way to look at the world and how we do things. And the question I will have for you on my show is the mind mapping and the diagram and your explanation of Ikigai is just fabulous. So we will get into that when I have you on my show.
I will look forward to that. Thank you. Do you have enough of? I know you're restarting it right now. If there is a link that we could go ahead and share with folks, we'll put it in the show notes. Otherwise, we will tell people to go to duchessllc.com.
Yeah, Duchess LLC for right now. I had put my podcast on the back burner when I was taking care of my mom as she was battling Parkinson's, and just haven't gotten around to putting all the things in place to start it, moving one place to another, all those things. And the second quarter of this year is when it's slated to go live. And I'll make sure you have information and we can share it with your community as well, especially when you're going to be on. So.
Absolutely. We'll get that out there. Well,
I don't know that I'm going to be able to run the starship like you do, though.
Well, and it can be like that sometimes. So hang out in the green room for just a second while we wind this up, because I want to thank you properly. I'll be right with you. But in the meantime, folks, those of you who are regular listeners, you know that I do this sometimes. I'll get on here and then realize once we're in the program, I have forgotten to pull up the calendar. I want to check. I think I know who's coming up next week. Yes, next week on the Alignment Show, we have scheduled somebody who is like Bob Berg and Jeff West. They're sort of my people that I would fanboy over. Joanna Penn is scheduled to be on with the Alignment Show. Now, that name may or may not mean much to you, but if you're around the independent author community much, you know that Joanna is to independent publishing. How would we make a comparison? She is like Thomas Jefferson to the American Republic. I mean, she was one of the pioneers. She has figured out so much and led the way in independent publishing. We are on the cusp of another revolution in independent publishing, and she's leading the way on that. So I am very pleased to be able to have her on next week. You're going to want to mark your calendar, 10 a.m., January 19th, and we'll look forward to that conversation. In any case, I've got running across the crawl down there, Duchess LLC, so that you can connect with Peg. I'm going to change it right now to confidencecultivators.com. That's where you can go to get show notes on this show and other shows. You can find out about upcoming guests. And we look forward each week to having you with us right here on the Alignment Show. We will see you next week. That's it for this week's episode of The Alignment Show. What has it inspired you to do in your own life? Whatever it is, take action now and take the first step. It will help you to talk with a friend about what you're thinking. Share confidencecultivators.com to spread the goodness. And remember to live your values and value your life. We will see you next week on The Alignment Show.